Greetings. Welcome to the Black Pill. Let's talk about women's bodies and capitalism. Um, Starting in Chengdu, I did a therapy workshop in Chengdu, sort of just prior to COVID hitting. It's not my fault. I didn't do it. It was just before COVID shut down world travel, and man, it was a great experience. I've been over about 5 times, therapy workshops, existential conferences, really fantastic, eye-opening, world-changing stuff. I have more stories than this one, and maybe we'll talk about them as we go ahead. And today I want to talk about my fat friend in Chengdu. Um, it's just really uncommon to meet a fat Chinese woman, especially a young fat Chinese woman. It's very uncommon. There's a lot of pressure for people to be perfect in every way, and for perfect to be sort of a top down kind of concept. We're talking perfect grades from the perfect school, the perfect apartment in the perfect part of town, the perfect job, and the perfect body. Um, Everywhere we went, there were ads for plastic surgery, and uh, yeah, some of those plastic surgeries are to remove the epicanthic fold so that people would have more Euro looking eyes. I mean, really gross stuff. Uh, it's the pressure people are under. I don't speak any Chinese. I can ask for a cup of coffee and ask where the washroom is just about if I practice before. Um, and even if I get that right, I can't understand the responses. It's a process of saying the words and then following the pointing fingers until you either find the bathroom or someone else to ask where the bathroom is, like that. So a lot of my communication, translation's really slow. So I might talk for 2 or 3 sentences and then wait, and 2 or 3 sentences get translated, and all of that time, it's body language communication while someone's talking, and I'm waiting for the translator to tell me what they're saying. It's body language communication, whether I intend it to be or not. That's what's happening. So a lot of like gestural communication, and so much of the time, while I'm just sitting quietly and waiting for things to happen, I might be patting my belly. It's just if I'm sitting in a chair and there's nothing else going on and most other gestures are constrained, I might just contemplate how good life is and what it's like to be here right now. It's nice. Um, and my friend was watching. My friend was watching those unintended communications. This wasn't a thing I was trying to say. It was just what I'm doing, waiting for something else to happen. And one night after the workshop was concluded and we're doing like the celebration dinner, um, she says she's never had a heavy role model. The best she could do was a male character in a kung fu series, um, because there are no heavy women on Chinese television, evidently, and so it was a heavier man, and like he's always getting satori. Like he shows comradeship with his friend. His friend makes a good point, and he headbutts him, and that's how they like. And then they have that flash of insight together. Bam! And so she wanted to headbutt me, and it really hurt. I let her do it, and it really hurt. And anyway, that's an aside. She never had a she never had a model for someone who was big and kind to their body. All that she learned is how to be unkind to her body, to eat less and exercise more, and look in the mirror with some level of scorn, shame. And so that's the thing that happened. How to be kind to your body in a place where that kind of kindness is just totally unheard of. It was just in this sort of mindless gesture between things. To be clear, to be absolutely perfectly crystal clear, My fat friend, be about a size 8 American. Dress size, about a size 8. The average here is 8 or 10, you know? Plus size is 14, and you have sizes going into the 30s. Like, man, she would just be average here. I just want you to know that. She'd just be kind of average here. Another friend, an American expat. Her parents came from China. She was born here in the US. She went back to China. Went back to China? She went to China, sort of chasing her parents' culture, history, whatever, and then kind of decided to stay. And I met her at a conference in Dalian, and I'm going to refer to her as Yeah. Her name in my head is Yeah. Because she has this weird conversational affectation where while you're talking, and most people would not, she goes, yeah. Like she really gets it. And yeah, I really remember her. She was a nice human being. She was a very pleasant human. So yeah. She talked to me sort of ex parte about how much body pressure she felt. There's something like a cultural anorexia. Not that the culture has anorexia, but the culture was giving her sort of a culturally approved anorexia. And she looked very small to me. Like all of the other women at the conference, she looked very, very small to me, very slight and slender and barely there. And she's like, yeah, but I wasn't always. You know, coming from the US 4 or 5 years before, she'd been about a size 6. And China had slimmed her down. By fair means or foul, China had slimmed her down. And like the fair side, I always lose weight in China because we walk everywhere, and the government regulates what can be in food, and we eat just tons of vegetables and fresh fruit, and it's all absolutely delicious, and I don't miss our fat and meat heavy, sugar heavy diet at all, and we walk everywhere. And so I eat like a hog. I just eat until I can't anymore. And like one more dinner, I can't do one more 2-hour dinner with the spinning table. I can't do it. And I lose weight. So that's fair means, but the foul means are just this sort of basic intolerance for any sort of difference. People with brightly colored hair, men with beards, like kind of stuff stands out, and being large stands out, and it isn't really well tolerated. So yeah, she liked her body the way it was. She liked being kind of thin. And she also hated how much she worried about gaining weight, about how much her sort of social standing depended on maintaining that low body weight. So she was kind of in two minds there. So this is about culture. Ethan Waters' 2010 book, Crazy Like Us, discusses, among other psychological issues, the fact that there were no cases of anorexia the way the West would understand it until probably the late 1990s, when the concept of anorexia was introduced in Hong Kong. And like now you could say there's a much more Westerny kind of anorexia, but it's not really diagnosed. It's just kind of a cultural expectation that most women would be preoccupied with their body size and their food intake and their exercise. I've seen some articles, some non-scholarly articles. I'm not very impressed by them, because the people I meet are happy and healthy and doing fine. But there are some people I talk to in that part of the world, and they do kind of vivify that kind of reporting. So there might be a trend that way. Waters is making kind of a complicated argument, a difficult argument about capitalism. And it goes like this: suffering leads to some observable behavior. So when suffering, there's an internal, conflict or imbalance or whatever it is, or a circumstance externally, and they suffer. And then that suffering leads to some observable behavior. Such behavior, when observed by helping professionals, gets described. We see someone suffering, their suffering is sufficiently extreme to warrant a description, it gets described. Once it's described, other people, other helping professionals are on the lookout for that same behavior. And then when that behavior is observed multiple times, it gets classified as a syndrome. It becomes codified, a diagnostic category. Once a syndrome, that's helpful. Once it's a syndrome that's available to all helping professionals, it also gets disseminated into the public. There's a talk and a press conference, and the diagnostic manuals get published online, and the drug companies air the diagnostic criteria so that people will go to the doctor and ask for the drug. And suffering starts to conform to the diagnostic categories. And the case is that in China, prior to the 90s, no one had a model for anorexia where they would suffer the way that an American anorexic woman would. It's a good case. You should read Ethan Waters. Like every living human should probably read Ethan Waters. And if you're into psychology and like aiming at or working in a career in psychology, like it's pretty much required reading. You have to do it. And then the last part is that the drug companies manipulate the news media and other media in the guise of concern. That's all very complicated. It's a case I might try and phrase differently and longer in a future video. It's not for today. Today I want to take a more direct look at capitalism and women's bodies. So mostly I'm in the sort of eating disorder, body dysmorphic disorder spectrum for today's little jaunt. There absolutely is a bunch of medical stuff we could get into. Here's Ethan Waters. If you want to see that, just like demonstrate it's a real book. Crazy Like Us, Ethan Waters, 2010. I'm looking for another book up here. I think I loaned it out and it never came back. It's called Even the Rat Was White. This is another good one, though. The Truth About the Truth. If you're into postmodernism and not Marxism, come on, Jordan Peterson, that's not a thing. If you're into postmodern empiricism, that's another good one. But Even the Rat Was White. One of the stories is Big Pharma. When they've spent, $100 million developing a drug, when it gets into testing, they would typically only test it on male animals because they didn't want estrogen complicating the results of the trial, which means that often new drugs being tested on humans had never interacted with female type hormones before the human trial. So that's a thing, and we could get into that. Mostly today, though, we're on how we think about our bodies. So let's take a more direct look at that. America, to the extent America is governed, it's governed by politicians who need money. Not in a directly corrupt fashion, nest feathering and, secret apartments in New York City kind of stuff, but campaigning costs money. Media costs money. To buy all the media that you need wealthy backers. And so just naturally, the Congress and the Senate tend to do the things that rich people want. So I'm linking you a vid You could also directly read the Princeton studies, but they would probably make you want to sleep. So here's a vid about them. I don't endorse the maker of this video. They have some political objective, and I'm not sure what it is. And so I neither endorse nor outwardly declare them evil. But there's a vid. Watch the vid. Take you about 3 minutes to get the important part. What these Princeton studies demonstrate is that the will of the people does not correlate to what bills get passed by the government. When you look at all of the bills they pass and public opinion on those matters, there's no correlation whatsoever. Until you start looking at the opinions of the top 1%. When you can get the opinions of the top 1%, there's about a 90% correlation between the things rich people want and the things government does. That is corruption. That's corruption. What companies want is minimal regulation. Ultimately, they want minimal regulation. Cryptocurrency is really an escape, really a program to escape regulation so that rich people can keep control of financial markets and evade even the minimal regulation we have on Wall Street stuff. So Folding Ideas, Dan, if I remember, I'll link him too. He has like a 2-hour diatribe on cryptocurrency that really is very illuminating. And there's a lot of people with these diatribes right now about cryptocurrency, and I think almost all of them watch Dan's thing. Yeah. So we get two things, right? We get minimal regulation on food itself. It has to be safe. It can't have E. coli bacteria in it, and that's about it. Very minimal regulation, and minimal regulation on advertising. And so we're stuck with ads for junk food targeted at children, Chester Cheetah, snack like you mean it. And we're stuck with ads for drugs. I've been taking my antidepressant for 6 months and I'm making progress, but my doctor thinks I could do better. And so I asked about a prescription for whatever antipsychotics. Maybe if your antidepressant isn't working, it's because antidepressants don't work. Oh God, don't come at me. Come at me, but it's going to be a much longer video if I haven't made it already. So you've seen my previous video on how America makes us fat. We have access to calories, but not nutrition. We're overfed and undernourished, to use a phrase. We have junk food ads targeted at children. We have lack of open spaces for walking. Everything's built around cars. Often, even if you wanted to walk from one place to another, it's just impractical. We have a for-profit healthcare system, which is disincentivized from preventive medicine. And all of this and more contributes to our body shape, which is frankly heavy. Individual responsibility is a cop-out because statistically, people choose from the array of choices in front of them using the information they have. And advertising works. All right, well, part two is once you have that average American body, you become subject to anxiety marketing. Mood not good enough? We've got a pill for that. Erection not working like it used to? Pill for that. Concentration lacking because in the attention economy, Facebook and Twitter and Apple give you ADHD for profit? Pill. Getting too fat? Clairol doesn't make any money telling you your hair is perfect already. They make money with the perfect model after a perfect session with the perfect hairdresser under the perfect lighting on the perfect soundstage, cascading her hair down her back perfectly. And then they imply that if you bought the Clairol products and washed your hair at home the way she does, you would have that perfect hair. And that is not happening. Maybelline doesn't make money telling you that your skin is perfect just the way it is. Whatever tone, texture, consistency, age, They make money showing you a picture of the most beautiful teenager that their modeling agency could find anywhere on the planet and asking you to compare your skin to her skin. Maybe it's Maybelline. Come on, man. Maybe she's 17. You can't. You can't look like her. You don't have the genes and you're not 17 and it's not happening, and no amount of makeup is going to make that happen. Even if it could, is that what you want for yourself? All right, look, capitalism is supposed to promote competition to solve problems. The thing is, all the problems are solved? Oh, I hear you, I hear you. I mean the problems that are amenable to capitalism, okay? All the problems that capitalism could solve, it has solved. Climate change? No, obviously not. Big oil profits from putting carbon in the air, not taking it out again. And that's why big oil has spent untold hundreds of millions or even billions of dollars confusing us about climate change. The solutions won't come from business. The solutions will come from citizens with torches and pitchforks. They'll come from governments in the form of regulations, fines, and possibly prison time. So when we've solved all the real problems, the ones amenable to capitalist solutions, we have to create fake problems, solutions in need of a problem. Honestly, society was fine before boner pills. Those were invented by accident and the drug companies have successfully created a market. Now they're relentlessly marketed, telling men they're inadequate. It's always the same, rich people on vacation, and the husband obviously looks 50, and the wife obviously looks like a 45-year-old holding it together and looking 35, and they're about to get in the hot tub, and like, when could be the moment? And like that. Just telling men that they're inadequate and presenting these images all the time. Honestly, we were fine a generation ago with like sort of outliving our sexual usefulness, and it's normal. What constitutes a real problem in beauty? I mean, that's already pretty nebulous. In a real democracy, our worth wouldn't depend on how pleasing we are to the eye. And women in particular wouldn't have to marry well to secure a reasonable future for her children. So appearance, looking good to please men, and then saying it's for your own self-esteem. I mean, you could examine that a little bit more deeply. Why does your self-esteem depend on your appearance? You live in a society, and it's a sexist society, and it promotes women's appearances almost to the exclusion of all else. That's why it affects your self-esteem. Body weight might be somewhat of an objective problem to the degree that it correlates with health problems, and that is not the degree to which you think it does. Diabetes, for example, probably is not caused by being fat. Diabetes seems to cause body fat as much as it is caused by body fat, and the central problem is probably the ingestion of a generalized American diet. High fructose corn syrup, other forms of just very glucose-dense food, and that both gives us diabetes and high body weight. And the solution to diabetes is probably a less capitalist society. But here's that example where we're heading into medicine just a little, where the refusal of the government to regulate anything, food, drugs, healthcare, means that we have a society that gives us diabetes and disproportionately gives Black people diabetes. And then the drug companies can profit on the back end of that by cranking up the cost of insulin over time. So Maybe hair color is a choice we could make that we couldn't make before that results in a little bit more freedom. Do we need it? Probably not. Eyebrow threading. That's probably peak capitalism. That's probably peak capitalism. Have you seen the ad for the stand-up pasta maker? You know, you take your pasta out of the plastic bag and you put it in this plastic tube and you pour boiling water from the kettle over it, close it up, leave it for 3 minutes. Perfectly good cooked pasta, right? Who needs that? What is that a solution to? And you know it's stupid because of the black and white cutaways on that advertisement, where some hapless elderly woman can't lift the pot of water and she's spilling boiling water all over herself and there's pasta noodles everywhere and it's a disaster and she probably shouldn't be living by herself. She probably shouldn't be living alone. Like, that's not a real problem. Who can't boil pasta in a pot? It's ridiculous. And we know it's ridiculous, and that's why that ad hasn't been on in years. What does that smell? Whose earwax is smelly? Gross. Don't worry, I used to have smelly earwax too, but now I use scented Q-tips. Women are under tremendous pressure. In China, to be perfect and have a perfect life and the perfect marriage and the perfect body, and in America. Different degrees of pressure on different aspects, sure, I buy it. I buy it. The main difference, though, is that the Chinese government isn't so shy about regulating food or advertising. China is not an obesogenic society. Here, American women live in the double bind, the nearly inescapable lifestyle that leads us to be big, and the impossible pressure to be thin, literally unmeetable beauty standards. Even 20 years ago, the models that you saw on magazine covers were photoshopped. Before that, they were airbrushed. Literally impossible beauty standards. Under the pressure to not eat all of the food that you're being told to eat, to do the fad diet, to exercise, and to be hungry at the same time, and also have perfect eyebrows. Philosophy Tube once a week makes the point that there are enough empty homes to solve homelessness. We could do that. Could solve homelessness tomorrow. We just don't want to. Nobody makes any money giving houses to people without homes. This is an even shittier problem than that. Our society makes people fat, blames them for being fat, then markets them the solutions. The same rich people sell you the burgers and the diet shakes. It's like Exxon promoting climate change disinformation, then drilling in the Arctic for oil when global warming melts the sea ice. We aren't well. We aren't well. There's a solution to this, and capitalism isn't looking for it. So, what to do? For me, I'm going to enjoy the good life as long as I can. I'm going to be kind to my large body. We're all going to be dead soon anyway. Black Bill out.